I want to call to order the monthly meeting of the Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission for February 18th. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Would the roll call show that 6 commissioners are present, and we have a new commissioner that will be taking the oath of loyalty. Ryan Peters, would you step to the podium, please? And would the clerk to the commission please read the loyalty oath?
I, Ryan Peters, do affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America. And the Constitution of the laws of the State of Arizona. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And defend them against all enemies, whatever. And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the Planning and Zoning Commissioner. According to the best of my ability. So I do affirm. Thank you.
Thank you. I won't go there. Due to a technicality, Commissioner Peters will be observing the meeting in the audience, and he will be given a chance to make any public comments that he cares to on any case. But according to this technicality, his term starts actually tomorrow at 7 p.m. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on January 21st?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the January 21st session.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Miller, a second from Commissioner Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, ayes have it 6-0. Okay, public comments. If anybody would like to speak to the Planning Commission on a non-agenda item, please fill out one of these cards and send it up here. Now is your opportunity to make any comments before the Commission. Anybody? Seeing none, we'll move on. Any ex parte communications? Seeing none, we will take our first case. I'm going to open the public hearing for case 07-700-00008, Madeira Minor General Plan Amendment, and the presenter will be Steve Creccia for the staff presentation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I need to declare a conflict of interest. I'd also like to briefly explain for my fellow commissioners and the applicant who was curious at the last meeting what my conflict is. For those of you who don't know, I'm a real estate land broker and a licensee in my office. A local farmer still owns a portion of this property. It's about 1,300 acres, and over the series of the last 4 or 5 years or so, this applicant has been taking down portions of this property. So that's my conflict of interest. I've had no communications with the applicant regarding any zoning or anything, just representing one of the property owners.
Thank you very much for explaining this for the record, and please take a seat in the audience. Okay, Mr. Creccia, let her rip, sir.
Mr. Chairman, the next item as well also relates to Madeira. Would you mind if I combine both presentations into one, or I guess combine both cases into one presentation for you?
That would be fine. We will take action on each individual one separately, though. Sean, can you say this?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Commission members,
Oops.
we do have two items tonight, general plan amendment and a rezoning for the Madeira development. Madeira is located in this location here, kind of Patterson Road is this alignment here. Existing Estrella development is right here. So we're about 6 miles south of where Estrella currently ends. What we have surrounding the Madeira property is basically we have Estrella's Region 3 that really wraps around the east, north, a bit to the west. We have BLM land to the south, some private holdings as well in this area. Waterman Wash is this line here. This forms the eastern boundary of Madeira. And again, Patterson Road is down here to the south, Chandler Heights to the north. Those are the north-south boundaries. 175th is roughly the western boundary here. Total within this boundary, we have about 2,363 acres. It's currently zoned agricultural, urban, and agricultural. And the property has historically been used for farming activities. We have a dairy up here in the northwest corner, farming activities through here. This part south of Hunt Road, generally undeveloped. First item that we're going to discuss tonight is the general plan amendment. And that general plan amendment basically looks at the same land uses that the property currently has, residential, community, commercial, some public for school sites. The general plan amendment, as what staff is looking at, is more of a refinement of the existing land uses as the applicant has studied the area further, especially as all the work they've put into their planned area development. They found that some adjustments were needed. That's the purpose for the general plan amendment. And as we can see here, these are the land uses that the property currently has, the acreage amounts, some adjustments to those acreages. And when you look at the before or the existing approved and the proposed, you can see that they've shifted a few of the land uses, moved some of these higher density residentials up to here, moved some of these down here, changed some of the school sites. So basically, moving on now to the rezoning. To take advantage of the land use changes, the applicant has developed a land use plan that basically just follows in line with those land uses. We have a village core here, higher density residential uses radiating out. We have those school sites. And this chart kind of just shows basically a breakdown of the land uses proposed within the PAD. The residential densities here as we get to higher densities. 7,004 units are proposed within the PAD, along with 356 acres of open space, and those 60 acres are for 3 20-acre school sites. And looking at a bit of the open space proposed within Madeira, Waterman Wash here, about a little over 100 acres. That's proposed to remain in a natural, or PAD is proposing to recreate a natural habitat state for this wash here. That contrasts to this wash here, the Madeira Wash. PAD proposes this to be the main active area within Madeira. And then you have several pocket parks, neighborhood parks dispersed throughout the community. Also, you have parks adjacent to every school site. Staff report mentions that park staff has looked at a community park site within Madeira. This is that parcel 6 that was mentioned right here. About 81 acres might fit for that community park if that's the route the city and the applicant go with. There's also a feature along the Loop Road linear park system. About 30 acres, typical width, will vary, but PAD proposes several amenities in there, kind of a neighborhood connection, something to tie the different neighborhoods together. That is a basic description of the PAD, the general plan amendment. At this time, Mr. Chairman, staff does not have any stipulations prepared for the rezoning. Tonight was just to provide some more in-depth information to the commission. Applicant will also do that as well. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Questions of staff? Okay, I have a question for you, Steve. The park area that you talked about in Area 6 is, would that have to come back as a general, if that changes to become a park from low-density residential, would that have to come back as a minor plan amendment, or is that an administrative issue that can be handled at the staff level?
Mr. Chairman, if it's a community park, a public community park, you bring up a good question. It should probably have a designation of public. 81 acres, 2,000 acre PAD, 10%. It might not fall within the requirements for needing a minor amendment. I'd have to look at that.
How would the city decide that a park is needed? I guess, let me rephrase the question. You know, does the city, is a park, you're presenting this as maybe we'll have a park here, and the question is, maybe we won't. You know, because the builder would rather build houses and sell stuff. The city would rather get a park built by the builder, et cetera. So my question is, what triggers our decision to say we need a park at this location, or we need a park in this general area?
At this time, Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of moving parts with our Parks Department. They've let us know that according to their level of service standards, that they're identifying a park here within this area. As far as a definite, we must have it at this time, I don't know if I've heard that.
Mr. Chairman, the Parks Department, consistent with current standards for the number of acres per 1,000 population, as well as more recent ongoing efforts for a Parks Master Plan update, has identified the need for 2 or probably 3 community parks of a size to 75 to 100 acres within this general area. In conjunction with this particular development proposal, staff has evaluated it, and because of the size of the proposal, it's very difficult to acquire that size of a community park at 75 to 100 acres, except on very large development proposals where it's under one ownership. So therefore, and this is one of the largest development in the area with the exception of Region 3 of Australia. So we've identified in our staff report and in our analysis of this that this would be one of those locations that would be potentially to be acquired by the city for a community park, and therefore have intended through the PAD process to identify that potential and have identified parcel 6 as being the appropriate size and location for that one of those community parks, in part because it may facilitate compared to other properties, a more efficient acquisition process because it's under one ownership as compared to smaller developments where we have to get 20 acres here, 20 acres there, and try to get it into the same location or adjoining locations. So our intent in this case was to identify that as potential, and through the PAD process, put the applicant on notice that the city has identified the need for a community park in this area, and identify that in the PAD zoning. And then under the subdivision regulations and Arizona statutes, the city has the authority to force reservation of land at the time of subdivision platting for a period of 1 year after a final plat approval for that area, within which time the city can acquire the property.
Okay.
If the city does not acquire the property, then the applicant is free to develop the property consistent with the zoning, which in this case, the base zoning would be the single-family residential of parcel 6.
Would there, when this comes before us for a vote, would there be a stipulation that identifies that area as a potential park and talks about this 1-year timetable?
Yes, there will be.
Okay. Next question. I'm just going to put this on the record, Steve. You don't have to answer this, but this is for Mr. Jones. On page 5 and 6 of the write-up on the PAD, you talk about the minimum lot size, and on the September 2008, and I'm more concerned about the 40-foot wide lots, and in the September 2008 final PAD that Madeira presented to us, they showed several of these narrow lots with houses with garages off to the side, garages in the back, garages in the front. My concern is that unless we have some kind of stipulation that prevents you from building similar garage front-loaded houses row after row after row, we are going to get those because that's the easy way to do it. So I think we need to have some type of stipulation that talks about, I know we have a stipulation, a standard stipulation that talks about different elevations. I think we need to have a stipulation worked into this for standard garage treatments if we're going to grant a 40-foot minimum lot size across the front. That's all the question, Commissioner Williams.
How deep are the 40-foot lots? I guess I looked at that, but I don't remember what it is offhand.
I think they are 40 by 110.
Thank you.
Or, wait, I might be wrong.
40 by 90, I believe, on page 516. So 90-foot depth is what the PAD
Thank
is
you.
indicating as the typical depth.
Are there any other questions for staff? Okay. Mr. Jones, would you like to speak, or Ms. Keith, or? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Dustin Jones with Tiffany & Bosco, and a pleasure to be back before you for the third time, and the third time we're going to get continued. And it's always a pleasure to be able to stand up and know you're going to get continued, so we can stand here and talk all night, right?
No.
Good to
Just bring forth new information, Dustin. We've heard it.
We're going to bring forth some new information for you, Mr. Chairman. Is this the keyboard here that I need to use to move my slides through? Hopefully we can provide you with a little bit more information about our PAD. As we indicated, we've come before you a couple times and we talked big picture because there were a lot of issues that needed to be resolved. And as a result of the two continuances that we've had over the past couple months, staff has worked very, very diligently, not only just with my client, Ariad, on this project, but with all of the developers, the half dozen or so developments that are going forward in the Rainbow Valley area. There was a meeting that was held January 30th, about a month ago, where all of the developers came together, and staff was very good at identifying all of the global regional issues that affect this area of the city. And then they've also been working very, very diligently to identify the specific issues that must be addressed by Madeira and Ariad, and they're doing that doing the very same for all of the other projects in this area. So we appreciate staff's effort. I know it's been a Herculean task for them to do. I've talked to Harvey, and he's indicated they've spent hours and hours working on this, so we appreciate their diligence because time is money. It's very important. My client, as we have indicated, has spent a lot of time, a lot of money working through the entitlement process, and hopefully the PAD book that you have in front of you answers a lot of the questions, provides a lot of the detail. And I don't know if the previous two meetings we've had, Mr. Chairman, you all have had the books. Did you have the books the last two continuous as well? Okay, so it wasn't just this last time. You've had it.
Had it all fall.
You've had it since last fall, so you've had lots of time to read it, and it's sitting beside your restrooms and water closets and all that kind of good stuff. I understand. I've been told.
I read it, Dustin. I
You
looked
did?
at the pictures.
You looked at the pictures. We spent a lot of money on those pictures, so we'll get into those pictures right now. Staff has indicated this property is at the southern, it's actually kind of the middle part of Goodyear at this time. I should share with you, about 8 years ago when I first was appointed to the City of Goodyear Planning Commission, took a tour with then planning manager Kevin Kugler. And we got on Rainbow Valley Road and drove south on Rainbow Valley Road to the very end of it. Patterson Road kind of dead ends there, turns into a dirt road. And we got out and kind of walked around. And we were looking at the sites and looking at the mountains. And at that time, I don't know if the Sonoran Desert Monument had been declared yet, or maybe it was just recently declared by President Clinton at the time, or outgoing President Clinton. But we were looking around, looking at development opportunities down there. And shortly after that, heard about all these development plans that were going on down in this area. And at the time, obviously, I was not involved in any specific projects, but I heard that people were acquiring land, assimilating land, and the city was working at earnest to put together development plans to be able to have a general plan and understand how to incorporate these areas. And so about 4 years ago, went through this process of putting together a major general plan amendment that came before you and was approved by the city council for this area, known as Rainbow Valley. And I can tell you at the time we were going through this process, when we submitted, as I had indicated before, we were at the very, very end of the city, but at the same time 2 years ago, there was a large incorporation of a lot of development south of this area. And we kind of got lost in the shuffle there for a little while as many things were moving very, very swiftly. But going through this process, went through and did the major general plan amendment to entitle the property for larger and impact the public policy to incorporate greater densities for this area and present to you a policy document, a major plan that would incorporate a master plan community, which we know as Madeira. We subsequently went through the annexation process just a little over a year ago and had our property annexed into the city with a pre-annexation agreement, and then have been going through these meetings. And over the past 18 months, have gone through multiple reviews of the PAD application that you have in front of you. So this draft, this large document you have there has been printed multiple times. Karen has worn herself calluses going back and forth to City Hall, dropping off different versions of it as we've addressed the different comments that have been provided. Staff did a good job in their presentation of showing where the property is. I wanted to show you some of the other existing conditions around the site down on Rainbow Valley Road, and the northern border, which is Chandler Heights, and then Patterson on the very, very southern end of it. You can see the dairy that was on the site. If you look at the general plan, there is a flyover for Berry Goldwater Range. We wanted to note that on there. If you go down there, the plains are very, very high. You see it on the general plan map. I talked to a gentleman recently who didn't want to buy in Estrella because he saw the map that showed the flight over path over the Estrella, and I had to correct him. I said, they're not flying right over your house, but he saw it on the general plan and thought that was something that was very concerned. So it's noted on here because it's noted on the general plan, but I can assure you the planes are much high altitude. This is our development plan. This is a master plan community, and I really want you to think of this as a bit different than what you would think of if we were just coming before you with a subdivision plat. Oftentimes, with the subdivision plat, you're looking at just how many lots and then where's the park and where the lots face and how many lots you have of a certain size. This is truly a master plan community with a village core, which I'll get into in just a bit, and provides for a variety of housing types. As we've noted, our PAD will allow for about 7,000 lots. And if you can see, in any type of a community of this size, you need a multiplicity of housing types. You're not going to want to have just single-family detached homes. So we've provided for single-family residential, multifamily, attached, detached, and a variety of school sites throughout the site. Public safety facilities. There's opportunities for police and fire to be co-located within the core of the the village on our site. So it's truly, again, a master plan community, large development plan. The entrance, as we've noted, is right. The primary entrance is off of Chandler Heights on the north side of the property. And you can see the renderings, the illustrations of the interior monuments that we've put together and provided for staff. I wanted to address some of the circulation. Staff has mentioned this, but wanted to also show you this illustration that shows our major arterials, our scenic arterials, and all of the other collectors that circulate throughout the site. As you can see, with the wash to our east and then limited connectivity across those, Riggs Road is the primary scenic arterial that will take east-west traffic from what would be, I guess staff is calling it, is it Phase 3 of Estrella, that southern portion that kind of wraps around our site, on the east side of Waterman Wash, and then on the west side of us going towards some of the other developments in Rainbow Valley. So Riggs Road is that scenic arterial. And then you can see we have a north-south road that runs through our property as well. It's important to note that all of these have bike lanes. Again, the idea when we put this together a few years ago, when there wasn't much going on south of here, was this somewhat triangular site needed to have all of the amenities and have all of the roads and circulation that a master plan would need to have. And because of limited connectivity to the east or to the west, you can see the circulation patterns are rather circular. So anyone within the development can get in and out. And you can also go east and west, but there are some limitations that because of some of the geographic constraints. I wanted to at least bring that to your attention. And then also note the roundabouts that we've provided as well, which are part of the circulation. Some of the questions that have arisen have dealt with the Hunt Road alignment. If you look at this slide here, you can see Hunt Road is the one that runs along the bottom. It's not the very, very bottom. That's Patterson. If you go up a mile, the belt line on there is the Hunt Road alignment. We can illustrate that for you. We have not provided a arterial on this section line. And typically you have your section lines where you put your arterial streets. We have not provided one here for a couple of reasons and wanted to address those to you. And that staff has called them out in the report as well. There are some constraints that impede our ability to do so. Some of those constraints is just to the south of here, as staff indicated, there is a Sonoran Desert National Monument, and there's BLM land to the south. There are some drainage issues. The property to the south is also in the floodplain. Interestingly, with the site, the water flows, drainage flows to the north. So it's from the bottom going towards Waterman Wash, and then Waterman Wash channels and takes it to the Gila River, and then it goes to the west towards Buckeye. So you need to think of everything moving north on this site, which is a little unique from most of the other developments that go through the city of Goodyear. But because of those constraints, there's a large amount of water that comes off of those hills to the south. You can see with this aerial here, you can see the arroyos or the washes that come off those hills. Oh, did I roll my R just then at this hour in the evening? You can see the washes there that flow north. And because of the flow of water, the 4,425 CFS flow of water that comes across there, there's going to be some significant engineering to be able to channelize that drainage. The green lines indicate where there's going to need to be some drainage channels to take that water going north. We've also provided some amenities along these drainage channels as we've done a lot of the engineering on this site. To put a road along there would be problematic because of where the road would need to be located in connection to and the adjacency to the drainage channels. Now, staff and engineering want to be able to provide east-west connection. What we've done to be able to allow for that east-west connection to occur, even though we're not putting a arterial on that section line, you can see with the blue lines on our plan, anyone on the east or the west that needs to get to the east or west can do so by the circulation, by the roads that we're providing within our development. Most of the development that's going to occur, again, that's BLM land. It's not going to be high density to the south of this property, BLM land, and then the monument. We just don't feel that there's going to be a need for a 6-lane divided road on that section line. You can see there's a few private parcels down there that have already been subdivided. They're 5- and 10-acre pieces. And we will, obviously, they'll have access to the roads to be able to move forward. But a 6-lane road to accommodate the traffic and the need from the south just doesn't seem to be warranted from our perspective. So we haven't provided that and within our development. But we've also provided access, as I've indicated, through the collector streets to the east and to the west. And then primarily, we've also incorporated the large arterial that runs north-south, which is that red line through the development. Within our PAD as well, you've already started to touch on this point, that we included a development code that addresses the various sizes of lots. And again, because it's a master plan community, we wanted to provide large estate lots all the way down to your smaller attached and detached sized lots for different types of residential. Within the development code, you can see, if you look at the matrix, because I know we'll have a continuance tonight, if you take the time between now and the next meeting to look at some of those setback requirements within the development code, they're very detailed, very specific with respect to the lot placement and where the homes can be on the lot and the setbacks from the sides to accommodate. Not knowing exactly which home type would be built on the lot, we've provided in the development code a variety of footprints that could accommodate different types of homes and different layouts, whether the garages are on the back, whether the garages are recessed at the back of the home. You'll find within your development code those variety of those. And there's been some discussion tonight about the lots that would be less than 60 foot wide. Because it's a master plan community, again, we want to have a variety of those lots, lot sizes within the development, because there are different desires. Different people have different needs within their families, and so we want to provide those. We would be open to stipulation with staff indicating, as they have on other developments, the specifics on the number, the size, the orientation of those. But we do feel if you're going to put together a master plan community, you want to be able to have the variety, but also balance that without having too much of any one thing on any one street. I know that staff has limitations on the number of two-story homes that can be adjacent to each other. You've got to have them broken up. We would be open to receiving a stipulation from staff that would address the garage dominance on lots that are less than 60 foot wide, and look forward to receiving that in preparation for the next Planning Commission meeting. And here, again, this provides you just another illustration of the types of lot sizes, and this will give you a visual of what we're looking at when we say multifamily. It's obviously the attached apartment or condominium types of dwelling units. Multifamily doesn't distinguish between the two. Townhomes would be ones that are attached, but the owner owns the land that's under the property, under the residence, I should say. And then these would be some single-family detached homes on smaller lots. You can see the illustrations. And if you look at, I haven't addressed it much yet, but the design guidelines that are incorporated in the PAD that become a part of this address a lot of the architectural needs that must be addressed if any one of these types of lots are selected. So that also helps the city once a home builder buys a parcel and comes in and needs to go through the design review process. The staff has the design guidelines that are incorporated in the PAD to do so. And now we're getting into the larger lots and the larger homes that are also a part of this development. Want to address a bit there's the design guidelines I just mentioned. You can go through those in detail as well. Gary, I'm assuming you've already done this, right? I saw a nod. Here's the village core. Again, being a master plan community, wanted to have a very walkable pedestrian area that is the village core. It's where the commercial, it's where the office, it's where the recreational amenities would occur. There's a lot of intensity. If you look at the general plan amendment that's before you this evening, as well as the PAD, you note the darker shaded colors, which indicates the higher density, which is appropriate in a village core, a downtown area, for lack of a better word, in any type of a master plan community, and you'll see that intensity within the development. Also want to address, again, the open space. There is a large amount of open space that's being provided in this development, particularly because of the washes, the drainage issues that I've noted, as well as because of the park, the linear parks that go along all of the circular roads that go through our development. We have a 30-foot wide linear park that runs along each one of those, and that equates to about 144 acres of linear park, as well as the community parks that are on there, and I'll illustrate that for you as well. This is the Madeira Wash that runs north-south. This is, again, a drainage need for this development. Starting on the south side of the property at Hunt Road, where we're getting that sheet flow of water that's coming from those hills there, takes it north, going towards Waterman Wash, and along this wash, we've provided a lot of the sports fields and amenities and community centers within that wash and the ball fields. You also note here the community parks that are illustrated. They're larger parks. And this is not to be confused with the community park that staff was indicating, which is the 75-acre plus. That's a different one. That's something that staff has been talking about, and as Bob Coons mentioned, the Parks Department has been kind of formulating a policy for creating these larger parks called community parks that are greater than 75 acres. These community parks that were identified and have been identified in our PAD aren't of that size, but are significant size parks, but not of 75 acres. So that and all of these parks that are noted here in our open space have always been contemplated as ones that would be dedicated to the city and a part of our plan. The 75-acre is a newer one, and that's a bit larger to digest, and I think we're still chewing on that one. Here's Waterman Wash again on our east of our property. This will be a regional wash. A lot of the discussion that we had with the Rainbow Valley folks about a few weeks ago talked about how to address this wash, how to amenitize it, how to either channelize it and when to channelize it, and who was going to be participating in that. And we'll be working with staff as we move forward to get more of the details as to how to address this as a regional amenity, but also one that impacts the individual property owners as well. And you can see here through this slide, the wash runs, that's the black line, it runs through many of the developments in Rainbow Valley, and it just runs along the periphery of what is Madeira. This is one of the illustrations we provided staff, indicating that probably one of the better uses, because the wash is so wide in many, many areas, then a native vegetation, native treatment of that would probably be best. To try to put a bridge across that in most areas would be challenging because of the length of it and the cost to do so. And there was an interesting discussion that occurred at the city council meeting talking about much of the washes in Scottsdale and other parts of the valley. We never have bridges over them. You just drove in the wash. They're typically for a large rainstorm, and you deal with those issues when they occur. But building bridges over every wash, particularly these days, can be very, very costly. And this here illustrates some of the other neighborhood parks that we've provided. There are 33 acres of mini parks that we've provided. There's 22 of them throughout the development. And then we have these other neighborhood parks, and we have 10 of those that are throughout the development as well. And this just illustrates again some of the linear park amenities that we're providing along Madeira Boulevard. I think we're stuck. And with that, here's just some artist renderings of their village center, the village core. And with that, knowing that we will be continued tonight, would open this up to any questions you might have about the development. If there's any questions that we can address now, we'll do those now. And if not, we obviously will prepare to have the answers for you at the next Planning Commission meeting.
Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I have a question, and I guess this is for both you and for staff. I mean, this is the second or the third, at least the second time this has been continued for 1 month. Is 1 month enough time now, or do you need it continued for 2 months to resolve your issues? You know, do we need to do a continuance for 2 months now and not come back next month and have
Never
another?
cut off a commissioner, but we'll do so now. No, we don't want 2 months. 1 month is what we would submit would be appropriate amount of time for us to get back and address all
Mr.
these.
Chairman, Commissioner Williams, staff has committed to the applicant that the 1 month is adequate time for us to, we must resolve these issues and move on.
Thank you.
Commissioner Williams, I didn't want you giving him any ideas.
One other question. Are you going to have a grocery store?
We hope so, absolutely.
Commissioner Loretano.
I would like to follow up on the grocery store, having lived in a master plan community where they built the homes before the village core, and then Tina Verado where they built the village core and then had the homes come. What is your phasing for your village core? Is it going to be the front end or just wait to get the homes? Because this is kind of remote out there.
I'll turn the time over to Larry Tyzak, who's the Vice President of Development.
Sorry, Larry, I have grocery stores issues. I don't like to drive 10 miles to a grocery store.
Well, that is an important issue, and particularly with the location of this development, we feel it's important to encourage buyers to buy homes in this location, that we have some necessities of life. So our hope is to take advantage of all the construction trades and at least provide initially at the time the first homes are open, a convenience store, something that would provide as many of the essentials in this location as possible.
I guess that's my question is, where's the actual physical grocery store? Because Australia, that's where I live, did have a Quickie Mart that you can't get things that for children if they're sick near the Quickie Mart. You need a Walgreens or a Bash's or something that like is an actual store. Are you looking, I know the economy right now and the phasing, but where in the phasing is that going to be?
Well, if you're talking about Walgreens or a full-size Bash's or Fry's, they need a certain number of homes, and addressing that issue is important to us because that sells homes. Having facilities and amenities sells homes. So I remember for years working the North Scottsdale area, and the Pinnacle Peak General Store was the place that everyone went to get whatever they needed. It was a community meeting place. And so a general store concept where you would get more than you would at a convenience store is the approach that we would work to have at this site as early as possible.
That's my concern, and y'all probably asking it.
It is mine also.
A lot.
Other questions? Sean?
Mr. Chairman, just wanted to call your attention, if you haven't had a chance to look at the phasing plan, which is on page 11.1, or figure 11.1 within your PAD. We don't need to go into specifics now. But the village core is part of that phase 1. It's part of the first phase. It's not in our phase 2 or phase 3. The timing of the specifics of the development of phase 1 aren't detailed there, but just want to at least call it to your attention that it's always been contemplated that the village core would be developed very early on.
I have a couple of things. Steve? Just sit. The applicant indicated that they would be amenable to some type of stipulation on garage front loadings, and I think we need to draft something up for the zoning, or we need to draft something up either for the PAD or the zoning to take care of that for the lots that are under the 60-foot, the single-family lots. And then my other question, I have two more questions. The Hunt Road alignment, I read through the drainage earlier today, and I guess what I want to ask you is staff, where is staff's, on the, the fact that you're going to put drainage canals where the Hunt Road alignment is, and then south of that, if you build a half street there, the question is where does the drainage go, and then who's going to build the other half street? So, can we have, has that been resolved yet, or are we still in limbo on that one?
Mr. Chairman, I'll defer to staff
Okay.
on the resolution of that.
Mr. Chairman, staff, traffic engineering department, planning staff have discussed this issue numerous times with the applicant as well as with ourselves. The applicant's proposing that the Hunt Road as an arterial street not be constructed along its alignment for the reasons that Dustin stated. Staff has reviewed that part of the proposal and agrees that Hunt Road as an arterial street is not necessary to provide regional transportation connectivity and flow. But we still have an issue relative to providing access to properties that are adjacent to this development, particularly those 5 10-acre parcels that are southwest of the development, immediately west of their estate lots. There are parcels there that are divided out, some existing residents. We need to ensure that they have adequate access and reasonable access within the development. City traffic engineer and engineering department saying that the applicant's proposal to provide a street, north-south street, from their internal loop to those properties, we don't believe that is adequate, that it's circuitous for those residents to get in and out of their current properties. We don't know the specific answer to that. Our intent is to provide a stipulation in the rezoning, well, one, recommending approval of the general plan amendment, deleting it as an arterial street, because we concur that arterial street's not needed, but that as a stipulation to the PAD zoning, that we identify that at the time of subdivision platting of that area, that we need to provide, the applicant needs to provide reasonable and prudent connection to those properties for ingress and egress, and that we would debate that appropriateness at the time we see particular development. It's basically a little premature now to make that decision until we know precisely how they're planning to lot and lay out the subdivisions in those adjoining areas. There's a number of possibilities that our staff saw. We didn't want to say do one or the other until we had a specific development proposal, a plat for the area.
Are we going to, will that be noted as a stipulation, or will that be noted in the dialogue, or are you on, or do we have that on verbal record?
We have identified that as being a stipulation.
We
Okay,
anticipated it was stipulated.
that's fine.
But we haven't crafted that. Our intent is over the next month prior to the March meeting is that we would craft all these stipulations and work with the applicant and come with you with mutual agreement on the stipulations.
Okay. Last question. If you're going to go in for, this is concerning the Waterman Wash and the fact that you control about 45% of the Waterman Wash as it transverses your northeast boundary. How are you going to engage Newland and the other owners of property in that area so that it all can be built at one time? You know, basically the channelization and the development of this wash. Because if you develop it piecemeal, one, it's inefficient, and two, I wouldn't be approving it unless we have some kind of master plan of developing this thing through your part and the adjacent part.
Mr. Chairman, we've had meetings, my client with Newland. The city has recently orchestrated some other meetings with all the Rainbow Valley developers. I believe there was a solution that's been proposed. Harvey, do you want to speak to that with respect to how the city sees us working or collaborating on the wash?
Mr. Chairman, in regards to the very last statement, there is not a particular resolution. We have identified to all the property owners that this is an issue that requires a regional approach. It's not so much of a desire to construct all at one time. The applicant has a problem of how do you construct half of a channel on their side without impacting properties on the other side or properties upstream and downstream. As background, it's important for the Commission to understand that Waterman Wash exists today. The applicant and the other property owners, developments in the area, are proposing, because the current floodplain is, in some cases, a half a mile wide, to reduce that floodplain through channelization and to capture developable land. Staff has no problem with that objective and has agreed to that. We've also have general concepts on how that would look. As Dustin has indicated, it would be a natural desert wash, approximately 600 to 800 feet wide with gentle side slopes. So we've agreed on that. What hasn't been resolved is how is the channel going to be constructed from an engineering standpoint. The applicant has proposed or indicated that the best way to do that is by one project, which we would concur, but there's no entity to build that as one project. The Flood Control District of Maricopa County, the Corps of Engineers, has said no, this is not a project we would undertake. Primarily because, from the statement from the Flood Control District, this is not a situation as similar to others that they've been gotten involved in. There's not an imminent flood danger or problems to affecting adjacent properties or houses in this area. They're happy with Waterman Wash as it is today. It presents no flood hazard. So they have no interest or need to get in and do as a flood control project. We could agree with the purpose of channelization. The difficulty is how do you get everyone working together, the property owners, the proposed developers, to construct it at one time. We have identified that as being, it needs a regional cooperation and collaboration among those developers. Those developers have looked to the city to be that entity. We've indicated the city's not in a position to undertake that type of project. In our view, currently, it is to each of the developers we've indicated to is as similar as them having to do a street adjacent to their property. If in order to build that street, they need to go beyond the center line of the street or go up or down the street in order to do transitions, that's their obligation, that's a cost of development. So what we've indicated to this developers and others is you will need to do whatever is needed to do from an engineering standpoint to construct this channel. If it means that you have to go a mile upstream or a mile downstream or across the stream to do improvements on someone else's property, you need to go to that property owner and collaborate and coordinate with them to do it.
So stated. Dustin, you've basically heard the city's position, and the city, I can attest that the city does not have any money in the capital budget to even consider this in the next 20 years. So how are you going to handle this?
Mr. Chairman, if I can refer again to our phasing plan, I don't know if this will provide all of the answers, but it does give us some indication that we recognize that this presents a serious issue. We have approached the other developers. If you had attended the meeting on January 30th, there was a lot of I don't know how to describe it, Harvey. We were all together, but we were not together.
Right.
In that meeting, if you've heard, and Harvey will chuckle. There are a lot of disparate interests. You have a lot of different property owners, have a lot of different interests, a lot of different issues. Our timing for development is different. To get all of us on the exact same page to come together and determine who's going to put up money to fund the channelization of Waterman Wash at any given time is very difficult. In our phasing plan, as what I want to provide you with, we recognize that development along Waterman Wash is probably the last part, going to be the last part of our development. We need to work with staff over the next couple weeks here to determine at what point do we really need to start addressing the channelization and the development along Waterman Wash. We acknowledge in our phasing plan that we have to work these issues out. That's why we're not starting with development along the wash first. We're not going to start channelizing. We're not going to start moving dirt over there. We're going to start working on the parts that are easiest to develop as opposed to the more challenging Waterman Wash side. We don't know when Newland's plans are in terms of improving the wash on their side. The other developers along this route, if I can have the PowerPoint back again, there are a variety of other developers along this corridor as well. I do not know, do not have the answer for you as to how we're going to get everyone together, but we acknowledge that there is a regional interest. We acknowledge that we need to come up with a solution. But what we can provide in our PAD is we know that it's phase 4. It's not something we can address today.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add one thing, is that if the applicant, because that's part of their development requirements, cannot find a solution to that in order to construct it, then the wash cannot be channelized. That would be okay from a city staff standpoint. It just means that they cannot develop those areas adjacent to the wash that they would like to be able to capture for additional development. So it's really, from our standpoint, seen as a development requirement and the need of the developer, one which they need to resolve, as well as the other developers in the area. It's of their interest almost entirely. Because we could take Waterman Wash in its existing state as a linear open space. So it really is a development requirement, and we're placing it on development community to work in whatever manner they desire in order to work it out. We have indicated to that from a city standpoint, we can act as a regional entity to coordinate their individual or collective submissions of the necessary paperwork to send to the Corps of Engineers to have it redesignated, coordinating the plans and everything else, but not as any entity to spend considerable time and or cost in order to construct it.
Dustin, could you go back one slide to your phasing, please?
It's actually on Elmo. We can
Okay.
switch back over to Elmo.
If I understand correctly from what Bob Kuhn said, basically the phase 4, everything in the light blue area is still, would be considered part of the wash until you channelize it and reduce it down to a 600-foot wide area corridor. Is that correct? Because all of that would be still in the floodplain.
Chairman, Commission, most of the, if you take an area that touches, what would be parcel 30 in this area and run it straight, that would be the existing floodway.
Okay, thank
So
you.
where it touches a parcel, we put that in Phase 4, and then some of the other higher density we put in Phase 4. If I can just spend a minute to clarify Waterman Wash, we agree with staff that it is a major issue. But I have some practical experience making something like this happen. Several years ago, as city engineer for the city of El Mirage, I orchestrated a 2-mile new channel construction very similar to this with 5 different development entities, just coordinated the work on a basic design with one submittal of a LOMAR of a completed channel to FEMA with approval. And so what Mr. Coombs said is correct. We just want the city, in their review and coordination effort, to help the development community make a plan happen for this. And because it affects our project possibly more intensely than other projects, we will likely be leading that effort.
I would strongly suggest you be the lead on it and use the city staff as the vehicle, but, use them lightly.
Yes.
Because it's to your benefit to get everybody else on board so that you can make this happen.
That's our plan.
Other questions? All right, let us, since staff is recommending a continuance, can I have a motion? Does anybody from the public want to make a comment? Okay.
May I be seated, Mr. Chairman?
All right, you're done. Thank you very much. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on the case 07700-00008, the Madeira Minor General Plan Amendment, and ask for a motion to continue this to our next meeting of March 18th.
Mr. Chairman, is there a reason why the general plan was being continued? I knew the PAD was being continued. I didn't know the general plan was being continued.
We haven't thought about that, Mr. Chairman. We generally process them together. My recommendation would be to continue both items.
This one will, you're under control on this one a lot more than the zoning.
Okay.
Moving right along. Just take it as it is. Can I have the motion to continue?
So moved.
I have a
Case
motion.
number 07200000016.
Huh?
I move.
No, that's the
continue-
zoning. That's the zoning. We're doing the minor general plan first.
Okay.
Zero-
I'm sorry.
zero-
I move we continue case 077000008 until the regular meeting on March 19th.
I have a motion from Commissioner Williams, a second from Commissioner Loretano. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Can I now have a motion? Now I'm going to open the public hearing for case 07200000016 Madeira Rezone. Is there anything new that needs to be discussed? Seeing nothing coming forward, I will close the public hearing on that and ask for a motion to continue that case. Commissioner Williams?
Sure, I'll move that we continue case number 07200000016 until the regular meeting on March 18th.
I have a motion from, and I have a second from Commissioner Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Moving on to, and I would strongly recommend that everybody keep your presentation stuff from Madeira, put it in your folders, and leave it with the clerk. Well, wait,
Thank you.
Joe, can we just put this in our folders and you'll give it back to us? Is that okay?
Well, I can't do that because I left mine at home because I knew we were going to
That's
continue it
fine.
anyway.
Okay, take it home with you, just bring it back, whatever. All right, we're off to signs, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to open the public hearing for case 08-220-220-00004, a zoning ordinance text amendment, Article 7, sign regulations, public hearing. Ms. Lackender, please do your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Gelzer, members of the commission. Before you is a proposed amendment to the City of Goodyear zoning ordinance. This zoning ordinance text amendment is an update to Article 7 regarding sign regulations. The city's current zoning ordinance was adopted May 24th, 1999, and has been amended over 30 times since its adoption. This includes multiple amendments to Article 7. The zoning ordinance text amendment before you is a comprehensive review of Article 7 with the goal to provide a clear, concise, and user-friendly document that reflects modern uses and zoning practices, current policies, and applicable city, state, and federal requirements. The proposed zoning ordinance text amendment provides better organization and clarification. It modernizes the text and definitions and uses, and enacts some minor regulatory and policy changes. The proposed text amendment revisions are outlined in your staff report. These revisions include some organizational changes, such as new images and graphics. Some of the large paragraphs that had many regulations and standards are now broken down into bulleted lists. Cross-references are provided, as well as references to aggregate signage are removed, and the article and its subsections are reorganized to provide more user-friendly formats. Some of the more substantive changes that are provided in the text amendment include a requirement of permit and requirement of conformity sections are added. Various definitions are added, amended, and some are deleted, and the list of those are included in your staff report. Information on how comprehensive sign packages are evaluated was added. Standards that are included for reader panel signs. Total signage sections were removed. Various specification and standards for certain signs were added, including for example, 2 feet were added to freestanding monument signs to provide for embellishments. Standards for freestanding monument signs were coordinated throughout the zoning districts. Gasoline service station signs are now permitted in permitted signs in the general commercial district. The standard requiring freeway pylon signs to go through the site plan review process was deleted. Signs were added to the temporary signage section, which include ideological signs, window signs, garage, yard, and real estate signs, sign walkers, special promotion signs, future development signs, and interim business identification banners. And signs that were amended in the temporary signage section include open house directional signs, grand opening signs, special events temporary use directional signs, vertical streetlight banners, and construction signs. Finally, some standards were added for certain signs, providing dimensional info or time frame information. The city did receive public comment on these proposed changes from Newland Communities, Suncor Development, and the Arizona Sign Association. The comments and staff's responses to these are provided as attachment 3 to your staff report. Staff did make some changes to Article 7 based on these public comments. Major changes included moving some items from the accepted signage section to the permits not required section. Drive-through menu board signs were required to have monument bases at least 50% the width of the sign, like freestanding monument signs. And freeway pylon signs do not need to go through the site plan process. This concludes my presentation, and I am available to answer any questions.
Questions of staff? Okay, Mike.
I just want to.
Commissioner Miller.
This was really well done, really an exceptional job.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller.
Commissioner Schlosser, who has rejoined us officially,
so to speak.
so to speak.
Question on the real estate signs. What's the current ordinance with signs? Does it have the 5-acre stipulation in there, or is that already existing?
Chairman Gelsner, Commissioner Schlosser, yes, the standards for the real estate signs are the same. The only thing I believe that was added was the time frame that they have to be taken down. I think it's 5 days after the sale is complete. So all the standards that were included. Basically, for the real estate signs, it was separated into ones that do not require a permit for residential properties, the smaller residential properties, and then ones that do are the larger, as well as the commercial and industrial sites. So they were just separated into two separate categories for whether or not they require a permit or do not require a permit.
But as far as for properties that are greater than 5 acres?
That's currently, nope, that is currently in the ordinance.
Okay.
It was just split out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have one question and one comment. On page 11 of 62, in Article 7 for exceptions, Section A, subsection 7.
Okay.
Could you explain that to me? I mean, maybe I'm dense, but I read through that and I didn't understand whether a Christmas tree lot needed a sign permit or was exempt or whatever. It was just, the last sentence in that paragraph just made it really confusing, at least to this.
I'm sorry, Chairman Gelser, what section was it again? 7-4?
So, yeah, 7-4, it's page 11 of 62, Section A, item number 7.
Are you looking at the marked up copy or the unmarked copy? I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the unmarked copy. But I can find it.
That's all right, I have it right here. 7-4, I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Item 7?
Item 7.
Yeah, item 7. It says, the last sentence says, such signs shall be exempt only when displayed within 30 days of the recognized holiday. And then it talks about signs displayed above it. Talks about signs displayed during recognized holidays as an identification of temporary sales for trees with an approved permit shall be required. And then I kind of got lost in there. So could you explain it in layman's language?
Sure. Chairman Gelser, I believe that's referring to the special use permit, or I can't remember what it's called, the city clerk permit, special event permit, that's talked about in the temporary signage section.
Mr. Chairman, we're talking about item 7 on page 11, correct?
Yeah.
Signs displayed during recognized holidays?
Yeah.
This
I mean,
section.
I read through this, Bob, and I didn't understand.
I can see where you're going, and, this section deals with those signs where a permit is not required. So for a Christmas tree lot, you can do a temporary sign identifying this Christmas tree lot, and a permit is not required. I think your question is the last sentence, such signs shall be accepted only when displayed within 30 days of the recognized holidays?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a double negative to me, and,
Okay.
And I think I'm above average, although I know my fellow commissioners might dispute that. But if I can't understand it, think about the poor person that is below average trying to read through this.
Mr. Chairman, as one of those below average persons, I would agree. As we were drafting this, the current ordinance has a number of items similar to that we actually are changing.
Okay.
And this one may be one that we didn't
Can we
pick up
change this?
that wasn't clear to everybody, because that is one of our purposes here. So I appreciate you doing that. Let us take another look at that and see if it makes sure it clearly conveys that what we're trying to say is that a temporary use can have a temporary sign.
You guys fix it, all right? Because you're not going to fix it here. Okay, I have another, same document, page 17 of 62, where it says reader panel sign. The illustration on the left is correct, but the illustration on the right is not. Because the illustration on the right is not one of those reader panel signs. The illustration on the right, where it talks about promotion ceremony, looks like it's one of those things where you stick the letters in and then you need a vinyl cover and you kind of talk about it in a different area. So I'm just saying, I think your picture's wrong here.
Chairman Gelzer, members of the commission, I believe we were trying to include both of them.
Yes.
Okay.
We do have some of the stipulations for reader panel signs, as you look through the residential and commercial, do take into account the Lexan covering
Okay.
that goes on these signs.
All right,
There are different types of reader panel signs.
Thank
The
you.
And we
electronic
struggled with that as well when we went through it. But.
all right, that's fine. Okay. Any other questions of staff, comments? I mean, it was, the balloons are really good. They really do help, you understand it. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to open up the public, and I have one card, Mr. James Carpenter from the Arizona Sign Association would like to make a statement. Could you?
Thank you. James Carpentier, representing the Arizona Sign Association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I just wanted to agree that there was a lot of good work done by Ann in relation to the arrangement of the code. From the association standpoint, that's great to have a code that works, that we can read, and it makes for submittals to be hopefully better. There was a couple areas, though, that we wanted to appeal to the commission and to the city and at least put it out on the table for discussion. One of them, if you could look at page, it's the comments that her response to the comments. Let's ask you page, I've got page 9 of 10, 39 and 40. Does that make sense? You could find that. It's
Is this 739? Is that what I'm?
No.
it's a
Okay, never mind, I see it. I got it.
It's
Attachment 3.
Attachment 3 on
Got it.
page
9
9.
of 10, okay, got it.
Items
got it.
39 and 40.
Okay,
Well, if we could look at 40 and first, because that's a little simpler. There, what the association is recommending that all electronic message centers include photocell technology to vary the light intensity of the display. This is recommended so that electronic message displays that have appropriate light intensity at day or night and day and during varying light conditions such as a cloudy day. And really the reason for that is a safety issue more than anything, because most of the LED displays that are produced now are made in the United States, a lot of them that you see that are put up around here. But there are some that come from other countries, China, maybe other countries, where they don't have the photocell technology as a part of it. And that's where you may have seen these signs too, where I know I have, where they're pretty much full blast all the time, or there's not enough variation in the LED intensity. So at night, you can't look at them because they're so intense. It causes a potential safety issue. So that's one that we really strongly recommend that the city consider including just because of that, so that you don't have a situation. Chances aren't great that you could have it, but I know Maricopa County is including that language. They're working on a draft now. Phoenix is working on a draft. They're including that language. You don't see it prevalent in any of their codes, but you will see it as some of the cities do update their codes. So that's a relatively simple one. Any questions on that before I go to 39?
nope.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How does that affect the cost of the overall signs? I mean, obviously there's a balance here, by again forcing the companies that put up their sign to invest in.
Well, that's a good question, because clearly you could probably get a cheaper model, or say you're looking at a certain amount of square foot of an LED display. You could get a cheaper one that would not have that technology as a part of it, and the net result is one that, like I say, is, in the view of the association, really unsafe, not good for the city or for the association or for the person that's advertising, quite frankly, because you literally, what it does with a lot of too much light coming out at night, when you look at it, it's glaring, and it's one that is unsafe. So yeah, is it going to cost a little bit more? probably, because someone would be looking at that type of unit to save money. But when it comes to safety, I don't think that it's, I think it's a no. And from my perspective and the association's perspective, it's kind of a no-brainer.
I'm just trying to understand if this is ultimately going to be cost prohibitive for some businesses over others.
No, like there's only one member of the association that's a manufacturer, and they include it. And whenever I ask anyone in the industry, do you guys all include it? Most of them say yes, that are manufactured here, and many of them elsewhere too. But there's some that don't, and it would be the specials that you would find, online somewhere that you really wouldn't probably want in your city. And we certainly wouldn't endorse that they go up. There's not a lot of them, but I have seen them pop up occasionally. And the net result is a moratorium on LEDs, and there's it causes a problem for everyone involved, because it affects the businesses that may have a right to use them in other situations. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I might add to that, I mean, maybe to back up a little bit, one, and what we're doing in this amendment is putting in that we are allowing for gas stations to have the electronic message display, which is not currently allowed. But gas stations need and actually are required to display the prices. So we're putting in a provision to add a new sign that's not otherwise authorized today. We, in response to their review, we decided that we're providing for electronic message display reader panel basically for this use. The text doesn't prohibit this photocell technology, nor does it prohibit any other type of technology. It just says you can have this type of sign. We haven't got to the degree or point of regulating any type of specific means to do the electronic message, and purposely selected not to do that, figuring that, one, let's take this first step to allow the use that's needed, and then we can get in further at subsequent times if we find that there's a better way to do the message signs. So our response is it doesn't preclude this, but it doesn't require this particular technology either.
Which leads to my next question, which would be, now wouldn't then the degree or how light the sign is, I mean, isn't that going to fall under a different part of the code on how many
Night
foot
sky,
candles?
what about night sky?
That part does concern me, and something that I've just made note of, whether or not we do have a purpose and a need to regulate that relative to lighting and glare. Because I'm not an expert in this, and we can look into this further relative. Is this a potential community issue where maybe we need to specify light levels or some standards? I think we have some things in the sign code relative to lighting, but I'd have to double check. No, it's not? Okay. We do have Article 10 in the zoning ordinance that regulates overall light levels. If we feel that Article 10 doesn't give us the protection against overlighting these signs and glare and unsightly, whatever you want to call it, then as we go through this, we will probably be looking at recommending some other language to prevent that from happening. But we didn't want to do the photo technology as being one means by which you could use a sign, do a message sign, because there is others.
Yeah, I would rather see if we could come up with some suggested wording to incorporate your concerns, but also allow, there's going to be, 2 years from now, there's going to be some other new technology that's going to come out. And I don't think we need to revisit the sign ordinance every time new technology comes out or every advancement comes out. What we're trying to do is make this easier for everyone to read and understand, but we also, I think the light level issue, maybe we need to refer back to the light. Isn't there some kind of don't we do cross-referencing in this new thing? And maybe we need to cross-reference this new section into the light level and just say, okay, you have to comply with that too.
Well, we'll certainly look at that. My suspicion is, however, is that in Article 10 dealing with lighting, probably doesn't address this issue relative to glare.
Okay.
It's more in terms of illumination and the foot candles and all that, and we're talking about a different potential issue here.
No, I
That
think,
is correct.
So we're learning as we go here, and I appreciate, Mr. Carpenter's comments. If there is a potential issue here of overlighting via the sign or glare or other negative aspects, it's something that we need to address.
okay.
And that's exactly the issue. And there are other ways to deal with it. Mesa's got some, and other cities have incorporated certain levels of light. And given that it's not an incandescent light, it's measured in what's called nits. And I don't want to get into the technical side of it, but it's a whole different way. It's a whole different way to measure it. There's a nit gun that measures it, and there's a lot of different things. But there's ways that you could put it back on the industry. Mesa requires that there's a sign off by the manufacturer that it's preset at a certain level. Not that hard, not that difficult to do for the manufacturer. It's been done for each one of the LED signs that's put up in Mesa. So that's one way to deal with it, and you might want to look at that.
Okay.
We will certainly do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before it comes to council,
Yes.
we need to, let's get this resolved so that, that both you're reasonably happy and staff is reasonably
Yeah,
happy.
and it's really just so that you don't run into, it really can create a problem.
Okay.
And it's one where, you can have a sign that the LED light source is very directional. It doesn't, when you see a sign, it doesn't cause a night sky type of issue because it doesn't reflect up. It just reflects exactly where it's going. It's a very directional light. And because of that, it can be intense if it's too intense. It's very directional. So appreciate you at least, considering to look at that.
Okay, let's talk about 39.
39,
Let's move on.
that's the big one. But and I'll just read what the association recommended, that this has to do with the recommendation that the city consider allowing electronic message displays in commercial and industrial districts, and that changes be allowed at 8-second intervals. Electronic message displays allows for a very cost-effective method of advertising due to the flexibility. And if I could just go through, there's information that comes off of the Small Business Association website about electronics. It's not provided by the association or the signage industry. And in a nutshell, what they talk about is considerations it's really from a business perspective, why a business should consider this type of signage. It is extremely cost effective. The per 1,000 exposures is a fraction of print, TV, and radio. When I say a fraction, I mean a fraction as far as cost. It's the most effective other than word of mouth form of advertising there is, period. And this is based upon the SBA. It's not the Sign Association speaking. The return on investment is typically 15 to 150%. So there's even at 15%, when you're looking at a small business, especially nowadays, that can make or break a business very easily. Additional, whatever it might be, $1,000 a month even, can make or break a business. And they also can provide public service announcements. They're currently not tied into Amber Alert. I know some of the larger off-premise type, the larger displays that are off-premise digital signs they're tied in with Amber Alert. The on-premise signs aren't, but someday they may be or could be. And clearly there can be community announcements, public service announcements on these signs due to the flexibility. And really from an association standpoint, I mean, what this type of sign does, it really helps to provide a strong economic development in wherever they go, because it does support the business since it does have the flexibility and properly regulated with the type of suggestions that I previously made on the other issue, that they're safe and they work well. And actually, because of the increased ability to read the message, I believe they're much safer than some other types of signs that may not have the contrast in the letters and the background where you really can't see them too well. These you can read, and they tend to be, because of that, even safer, I think, than signs where people are trying to read it from a distance and they just don't work. But we would ask that the city and the commission consider, at least look at this option, if not now, maybe down the road, because of the economic impact is huge for that one business or, that's been in Mesa, Gilbert, Phoenix for a while. You talk to the businesses that had them before and after, and I'm sure the types of numbers that I mentioned would bear true. So.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Loretano?
I just want a definition of what you're talking about on electronic message display. Do you mean like billboards, those billboards that switch? Is that what you're
Not at
talking
all.
about?
That's a whole nother, we're not talking about that at all. This is on-premise signs only. And how this regulation would look would be, it takes a lot of different forms and variations. A lot of communities allow a certain percentage of signs. Say you allow a 50-square-foot ground sign, maybe 50% or 60% of that could be a message center, which would make it relatively small in relation to the entire allowable signage, for that particular site. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it that are reasonable. And really, regulation of any sort, it's a balance of the community, the development community, the business owners. It's a balancing act on what the community, what direction the community wants to go, what's going to work aesthetically, how's it going to fit in. So there's always a lot of different interests, and it's really, what's best for the community and this community right here.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Loretano, I guess the best example would be is what you see around the Valley a lot with Walgreens, where underneath the Walgreens freestanding sign, you'd have a message saying, gallon of milk, $2.50, that, our code does not permit that. And what we've indicated and what the request is for the city to include that as an allowance for basically any commercial use, similar to that we are allowing for a gas station and some other uses such as theaters that traditionally have those. We've indicated to the Sign Association that we appreciate what they're saying, that request, though, however, was a significant policy change, that we going into this project as being more housekeeping, organization, cleaning up the text, that if there was specific policy changes, staff would recommend, we identify those, put them aside, and tackle them separately later if it's request from the commission or council. We could initiate that subsequent policy change, involve all the stakeholders into it, including the business community. The applicant or the Sign Association anytime can make that request as a text amendment. But in regards to what we're doing with this amendment, we're trying to keep it to those that are not significant policy changes, and we felt that was a significant policy change.
Other comments? The political reality of Goodyear is there are several council people who are very concerned about these signs and are very anti-moving signs, especially on pylon signs or freeway signs or even anywhere that it can, quote-unquote, distract the driver. And so my suggestion to you is that you work with staff after this gets passed and we go through, that my suggestion to you is that you see if staff will work in some type of a work session where you can make a presentation on why this is beneficial both to business and why it is a safe way of utilizing an electronic sign. Because otherwise, even with our upcoming election and new council people, the incumbents are not going to pass this.
Yeah, and that is always a concern in relation to LED signs, since they have the great flexibility. It's how often do they change? Is it a distraction? Does it cause accidents? And clearly, communities can and they do regulate the frequency of change and how it changes. Is there animation, emotion, so that it can fit into the community and be safe and not have be considered a distraction. So that can easily be addressed and is addressed in most of the codes.
Okay. Well, all I'm suggesting is let us get this through, get this cleaned up, and then I think sometime during this upcoming year, you want to work with staff and have some type of presentation to council, because those people are not at this point in time, from what I understand, would not be in favor of that change. And you would have to, and it's incumbent, if you want the change, it's incumbent on you to move the project along. Any other comments? In that case, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any commission, thank you very much for your comments. Any commission discussion? Otherwise, I'm going to ask for a motion to recommend approval of the case 0822000004 zoning ordinance text amendment, Article 7, sign regulation.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of case 0822000004, the proposed amendment to Article 2-2 and Article 7 of the zoning ordinance.
I have a motion from Vice Chairman Lax and a second from Commissioner Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 6-0. Thank you very much. Staff communications.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I just want to remind you, we have a tour of the Amazon.com facility being scheduled for March 5th in the afternoon. So I don't have the details, but just wanted to remind you of that. Otherwise, I don't have anything else, unless you have questions of staff.
Just bring your Madeira stuff for March, right?
Yes, that
Okay.
would be good.
Anything else? Any staff, any commission communications? All right. Friday's my birthday. I'm going to be 60. All.
I move we sing happy birthday.
No, I don't move. We do. No. I motion.